This is TWiT.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888 ask Leo, reboot your router. The FBI says, you don't usually get tech advice from the FBI. They say, reboot your router. This is a kind of an interesting story. The FBI uncovered a Russian virus called VPN filter that has infected, they say, as many as 500,000 routers. I'll tell you the brands, but in my opinion, everybody probably should just reboot their router tonight before you go to bed or whatever. Just unplug it, wait 5 seconds, plug it back in again. That's all you need to do. Shouldn't affect anything, but it will clear out the virus. The virus can only live in memory. And a number of Linksys routers are affected. MikroTik, Netgear, QNAP, and TP-Link. But, you know, you can find the model numbers if you go to a Symantec site. Actually, you know what? I'll put this on the Tech Guy website, techguylabs.com, if you want to see if your router is affected. But I think that's a limited list that is perhaps not complete. Woman in Pittsburgh gave the FBI permission to monitor her network. She had an infected router. And the FBI was able to figure out how the software worked. Very clever. So routers are computers, but they're not smart computers. And they don't generally have permanent storage. So the virus didn't have a space to put itself. So what it did is it put a little bit, they could store permanently a little bit in the firmware of the routers, the affected routers. And that little bit loaded the rest of the virus into memory. Rebooting your router just clears the memory out, and the router's clean, except that there's that little bit of software which will then try to reload the virus, VPN filter, right? So when in the past, if you'd rebooted your router, it would just reload the virus and continue on. What is the virus doing? Well, it's not attacking you, almost certainly. The Russians don't care about you, but they want to use your router to attack infrastructure and the internet. And who knows what infrastructure they're attacking. Could be, and we actually think this is probably the case, like the power grid in the United States. Oh yeah, get ready, because cyber warfare is really going to become a problem. Russians use the Ukraine as a test bed. They've already knocked out the power grid in Ukraine for a couple of hours, kind of a test, using malware. And they've done other things in Ukraine. And this is kind of a test bed for cyber capabilities that they would presumably want to use against enemies. And guess who's number one on the list? It's us. So Fancy Bear, which is a Russian hacking group, best known for hacking the DNC, getting John Podesta's emails, Fancy Bear created this VPN filter. It's taken over, according to the FBI, 500,000 routers. I bet you it's more, and I bet you it's not just the routers that listed on this Symantec page, but many more. So I would say take the FBI's advice no matter what router you're using. When you go to bed tonight, unplug it, wait 5 seconds, and plug it in. The reason I say wait till tonight is you'll take yourself off the internet briefly, like for a minute or two as the router reboots and starts up again. The reason it's safe to do that now is because the FBI watched what was happening at this Pittsburgh woman's house and figured out that the malware, the little tiny bit of malware that's permanent in your router, was doing two things. First, it went to a site called photobucket.com. And this is a well-known site. A lot of people use it to do photo sharing. And there were two malicious images on PhotoBucket. And I guess in the metadata of the image, the malware was contained, is what I gather from the FBI report. Although it's hard to tell, the FBI doesn't, it's not. I need to see a white paper, something with a little more technical detail. But that's what it sounds like. Somehow they were using these two images to infect routers. FBI took those images offline, and also coded into the firmware and this was the mistake that the Russians made, Fancy Bear made, is a hard link to a site called toknowall.com. Usually malware authors, and in more sophisticated malware, we've seen this, they have other means of going out and getting information, because the problem is if it's hard-coded to one site, the FBI can do what it did, which is issued a warrant to, I think it was VeriSign, that owns the DNS. Remember we were talking about the phone book lookup, the DNS record for toknowall.com, and they took it over, effectively severing the link between the virus and your router. So you can safely reboot your router. It will try to go to PhotoBucket, not find those photos. Then it will try to go to knowall.com and get nothing. And meanwhile, the FBI is going to see every single one of you who goes there and know who's infected. That's why maybe that number is accurate. I don't know. Because you're going to go there, they probably can see what brand of router it is and so forth. But the good news is it won't get reinfected. And whatever bad stuff the Russians planned, Fancy Bear planned with your router will be thwarted. But boy, this is just the beginning. This is prepare yourself. We already know that most of the nation's infrastructure, its power grid, is infected or has been attacked, but in many cases already been infected by malware. The Russians are no different from other high-level hackers. They know how to use your router and other Internet of Things devices. And the real threat is not to you. Yes, your Internet of Things light bulb or microwave oven or router or camera can be used to get into your network, but that's really, they don't care about you. What they want to do is create an army of bots that can be used to attack other things. And if you have access to 500,000 routers that can send pings out to a single website, you can bring any site down, including those big domain name servers, the phone book of the internet, and bring the entire internet down. So you're doing us all a service if you reboot your router tonight. Everybody just, as you go to bed, unplug it, wait 5-10 seconds, plug it back in.